We all read news every day, and this news contains lots of direct quotes. And you think you know how direct quotes are made, because direct quotes are direct quotes. But let me show you something that I found behind the scenes. Here we have a journalist and an interviewee who is a director of a company that makes high-tech medical devices. And the journalist is asking whether their customers are like hospitals and such. And the interviewee confirms that they are hospitals, yeah. And the journalist is continuing by asking, so from the beginning it has been clear that it's also directed abroad. Yes, I mean the whole world is the market, isn't it? Yes, that's right. Based on this bing-bong interaction, the journalist wrote the following direct quote. We have targeted international markets from the beginning and have hospitals from around the world as our customers. Another example from my research data, different journalist, different interviewee, who happens to be very talkative. For example, here, he says that he has noticed that people automatically talk. People don't talk about the weather, or they talk about the complete strangers talk about the weather. People who know each other talk about what they have bought. And then the interviewee goes on and on and on and on. The journalist comprised this 3-minute train of thought into 4 sentences, 360 words in 30 words. Now, you might be thinking that this is not right, that you cannot quote this way. And why do you think like this? Because this kind of direct quoting doesn't fit into the picture you have about direct quoting. This contradiction can result in distrust of news media that materializes in vocabulary like fake news, conspiracies, and bias. I argue that to solve this contradiction, revive trust, and improve media literacy, we must uncover how media actually work. The challenge is that one media item can be based on dozens of interviews and documents, so it's difficult to track the process of news writing. Therefore, based on my own research on journalistic quoting in the field of applied linguistics, I suggest that we follow the process of quoting indeed, to better understand how media work. Quotes are easy to identify from the news text, and by definition, quotes have only one source. More importantly, quotes are shown to be a kind of final stage of getting one's voice through in media. And what I mean by this is that first, journalists and editorial teams decide on a topical issue to be addressed and at the same time reject other topics. Then journalists identify some groups of people who are somehow linked to this topical issue. For example, victims, authorities, politicians, lay people. And then journalists bring these societal groups in the emerging news item, but most likely not all of them. Then journalists pick some people as representatives of these societal groups and reject other people. And finally, journalists might quote these people and modify their interview utterances so that the quotes serve the story they are writing, just as we saw with these examples. Let's put this theoretical modeling into practice, because as we have seen, this process of quoting and the processes that precede it are full of intentional selection and rejection. Here in Finland, we just had presidential election, and prior to that, 3 journalists conducted a joint interview with one of the candidates. Based on this 50-minute interview, each of these journalists wrote their own article, and here we have a rough outline of each of these 3 articles. As we can see, journalists selected different subtopics because they wrote for different publications and anticipated what their target audience wants to read. In other words, the publisher's values and purpose and the audience's interests affected the process of news writing. Now, let's focus on one of these journalists. This journalist told the researcher, to me, that one prominent subtopic, Nord Stream 2, was cut out because it was a big issue and there was not enough space for it. So the preset concept of the publication and the article also affected the process of news writing. The journalist also said that he used to build his storylines by linking all the subtopics textually together. However, this time he decided to leave out one subtopic because he couldn't find a good and smooth way to bridge it with the other subtopics. In addition, the journalist knew that this candidate had been inconsistent when talking about Twitter bots. He wanted to point out this inconsistency, but at the same time, he wanted to remain seemingly neutral, objective, as journalists are required to be. So he quoted some other people who then presented these critical points of views in the article. And worth mentioning that besides the candidate himself, this group of opponents were the only people who were directly quoted in this article. So they got their voice through because their opinions and points of views happened to fit in the story the journalist wanted to tell his readers. I'm sure you all agree with me that the process of news writing is anything but a straightforward and self-evident process. In journalism, there is a guideline that facts and opinions must be kept separate. However, news writing never mirrors reality objectively. It just opens a narrow view on it, and this view is not random. Instead, all the content in the news are selected to be there, and this selection is made by the journalist, editorial teams, and publisher. So, facts and opinions are intertwined, organically and always. Now you know how media work, and this is the key to be not only literate, but media literate. Thank you.